Willie D Live.
In the studio, Pimpin, Ken, Ivy, and dun dun dun, Game God.
Goldie, the one and only.
Man, Game God, Goldie, the one and only. Now, do you say that always the same way?
I say it the same way every
Game
time.
God,
Hey, just like Weezy at
Goldie,
Baby, please
the
say
one
the
and
baby.
only. Yeah.
Game God Goldie, you got to please say it all, you know?
Pimp name slip back. Got to say the whole thing. Man, how did you guys come together? First of all, you know I know your record.
Right.
I was unfamiliar with you, Goldie, until I started seeing these interviews that you guys were doing together.
Yeah.
Now, I heard you talking. Boy, you got a mouthpiece. You're cold-blooded. More important than your mouthpiece is your brain, the way you think, the way you're wired. How did you two guys come together?
Man, I love when he tell the story. Go ahead, let him know how it happened.
Well, you know, it was a situation where he came to me, and the situation went all the way together. So I said, brother, you know, I like the way you demonstrate. I said, I want to come on your show. He has a podcast too. So I went on his podcast, and when I went on his podcast, he started putting the videos out. And the videos did 500,000, 1 million, 250,000, and we knew then that, you know, we were Batman and Robin. You know what I'm saying? And we was a dynamic duo. And I think that that's really what fostered our relationship. And at the same time, you know, he know that, you know, I'm the founder of the hip hop fraternity, and I also have a hip hop fraternity, HHF management. So I said, brother, you know, I would like to manage you. You know, I would like to show you, you know, that I could take you places, you know, where no nigga been before, you know, in your space. And he said, cool. So I was like, okay, let's get together, and we started doing this podcast run, started going to these different platforms, and now everybody, when they see him, they see me, and they be like, man, where he at? If I'm by myself, they ask me where he at. If he by himself, they ask him where I'm at. So I think that, you know, but more importantly than anything, though, Brother Willie, is that the brother's intelligence. You know, a lot of people don't know that I did 10 years in prison. You know, I read a lot. You know, I always tell people, they say, well, man, your name Pimpin Kid. I said, well, Malcolm's name was Malcolm Little. I said, if you love Malcolm, you should love me. He was a pimp too. You know, so, you know, that is one of the things people don't know. I liken myself not as Malcolm X, but some of the same roles that Malcolm took, I took, right? And while Malcolm was in the prison, he educated. He said, while I was in prison, I educated myself as well. You know, I know all about Islam. I know about Christianity. I know about history and everything. I read every historical book you could read, every biblical book you could read, every Quranic book you could read. So I'm looking at it the way you looking at it. I can see the wisdom, you know, coming from his person and emitting from his body. And I said, man, this dude here, you know, outside of, you know, the gold and the jewelry and the flash, you know, he's a really brilliant young man. And that's what really attracted him to me.
Hey, you got to tell him about the book. You know, we didn't even know this, but one of the biggest stories that I have is, you know, the first book I ever read as an adult was Think and Grow Rich, and that changed my life completely and got me on a journey of reading books and getting wisdom. And he told me the same thing after we met, that he read Think and Grow Rich in prison, and that changed his life as well.
At the same age, 19.
Yep,
we both read it at 19.
Who's the author of that book?
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
It's an awesome book.
You alluded to it earlier. Let's go back to Pimpin.
Okay.
How do you feel about the accusations that people say that Pimpin inherently exploits and degrades women?
Well, I say that people don't understand the game. You know, 99% of the women out there today is pimpless. They're doing it on their own. You have lawyers, doctors. You have women. I know you've been in the entertainment business. I know you went in a strip club in Magic City somewhere. They say, oh, I'm just dancing to go to college. You know, and people get this misconception because it started in 1960s with the exploitation of African-American films. You know, your Willie Dynamite, the Mac, you know, Superfly. They started depicting African-American men as like savages and women beaters. But it all go back to the birth of a nation, you know, under Jim Crowism. You know, when Europeans first started depicting us as below, you know, human, and, you know, blacks only, whites only, that's Jim Crowism. So it started then, but then it kicked back in, you know, during the 60s because you had Black Power, the Black Panthers, you had Elvis Cleavers, you had Huey Newton, you had Minister Farrakhan, you had Malcolm X, you had a bunch of conscientious things going on at that era and time. So they had to do something to depict that. And Brother Wesley Muhammad, who's a part of the Nation of Islam, he said, not only did they did that, they did what you call counterinsurgency drugs. Every time we do something that's heroic or we get into a situation where we're talking about revolution, they introduce heroin to us. And then after heroin, you had the era of Minister Farrakhan, the Million Man March, to introduce crack to us around the same time as the Million Man March. And this is this ploy of our enemy, our diabolical enemy. He does this continuously, to debase us. So one of the things that they do is they say that the pimp is a woman beater, that the pimp is a clown. And Willie, I don't know if you know, but I know some pimps that play golf, that wear nothing but Armani suits, that go to political campaigns, that donate money to, and you would never know that they pimping.